Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu which are very significant from your GS paper 1, GS paper 2, GS 3 perspective. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says, Blast killed 2, injured 41 at prayer meet near Kochi. The article here is important from your two GS papers. One is your GS paper 2, where we will discuss some of the important concepts with respect to the Indian polity, and we will discuss what is Article 25. We will also discuss one of the landmark judgments called as the National Anthem case. This is with respect to GS paper 2, and we will also have a brief idea with respect to GS paper 3, internal security. What is the context? At least 2 successive explosions ripped through a crowded Jehovah's Witnesses prayer convention. What is the context? There was a convention that was held as a religious gathering. The religious gathering was with respect to the religion of Jehovah Witnesses. These people had assembled, and in this particular place there was explosion which has led to death as well as casualty. Who has taken responsibility of this explosion? This happens to be a person from the very same community called as Dominic Martin. He goes on to say, I had been a member of Jehovah's Witness. For the last 16 years, I realized that their stand is anti-national and wanted them to rectify it. They were not ready for it. They could not understand that this is a wrong ideology. They injected poison into the brains of the children that they should not take even a sweet from others. They are asked not to sing. They are asked not to sing the national anthem or join the defense service. They teach that all people of the world would perish and only they will live. What should we do with the people who long for the ruin of the entire people in the world? I could not find a solution, and as a result, this person involved and he has executed this explosion, and as a result, this person was booked under the charges of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, or the UAPA, happens to be a law which was designed by the central government back in the year 1967. Why? Because they wanted to prevent the terrorist organization and terrorist activities, and in case such a terrorist activity does happen, who will step into picture? We will immediately have the National Investigation Agency which will step into picture and investigate who has conducted this activity, what is their modus operandi, what was their idea about engaging with this terrorist activity, and how we need to cut this terrorist activity. An entire analysis will be conducted by the National Investigation Agency. Now the most important question that we have to understand is from the polity examination point of view. That is, GS paper 2, we have what is called as the right to freedom of religion under Article 25. We will also try and understand who are these Jehovah's Witnesses. First, let's understand who are these Jehovah Witnesses. These Jehovah Witnesses happen to be a sect of Christianity. Jehovah's Witnesses are a Christian sect but do not believe in the Holy Trinity, the doctrine that God exists in 3 equal persons of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. So who are these Jehovah Witnesses? They are nothing but a part of the Christian sect. They worship Jehovah as one true and almighty God, the Creator, who is the God of the Abraham, Moses as well as the Jesus. So they believe that the God happens to be Jehovah. They believe Jesus Christ to be the King of God's kingdom in heaven, but not as Almighty God. That is their interpretation of Lord Jesus. They bases their belief on the text of the Bible, which they see as the word of the God. They don't celebrate Christmas or Easter because they believe that such festivals to be inspired by the pagan traditions. When did this sect of Christianity develop as a whole? The origins of the sect lie in Bible student movement, which started back in the year 1870s by American pastor Charles T. Russell. Today, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is located in Warwick in New York. The main body to disseminate the doctrines of the sect is called as the Watchtower Bible and the Tract Society of Pennsylvania, also headquartered in Warwick. This is the brief idea about Jehovah's. These Jehovah's happen to be a sect of Christianity. And how did they develop? Because of a Bible student movement back in the year 1870s. This group basically believes that there is a God and that God happens to be Jehovah. So they have utmost respect to this God, and ultimately they believe that they have a certain ideology and principles that they will respect only this God, that is Jehovah, and as a result they may not respect the principles that are espoused anywhere else. There was a landmark judgment that was delivered by the Supreme Court of India in Bijoy Emmanuel and others versus the state of Kerala and others, which is with respect to the Jehovah Witnesses. Who are these Jehovah Witnesses? We did discuss that they are part of a Christian sect. What exactly happened in this national anthem case? As I told you, they will respect only their own God, and they also believe that they should not praise any other God, and at the same time they also have a principle that they should not join the defense forces, and at the same time they also believe that they need not have to sing the national anthem. So what happened in this national anthem case? We have the state government of Kerala which had come out with a circular. According to this circular, it had clearly mandated that all school going students will have to sing the national anthem. But according to Jehovah Witnesses, they have a principle that they are not supposed to sing the national anthem. Why? Because their principles and ideology basically go on to say they can sing praises only in the name of God, and that happens to be Jehovah. So there were 3 children. One happens to be Bijoy Emmanuel and his other brothers and sisters as well. They did not sing the national anthem, but there was a circular that was introduced by the state government which said that all children will have to sing national anthem before they go to the classes. Since these 3 children did not sing the national anthem, they were turned out of the school. So they were asked to leave the house because they said that their ideology will not allow them to sing the national anthem, and as a result they were asked to leave the school. So what do the parents do? The parents immediately go before the Honorable High Court and they say that their fundamental rights is getting violated. They have their principle under Article 25 of the Indian Constitution. Article 25 of the Indian Constitution is getting violated. According to their religious principles, they can only praise their God and they need not have to sing the national anthem. But they also said they respect the national anthem, they are standing by it, they are abiding by it, they are standing, but they will not sing the national anthem. But the High Court in this particular case, the High Court of Kerala said that since there was a circular in this particular case, it is compulsory for them to sing the national anthem, said the High Court. However, this matter went to the Supreme Court of India. That is where the Supreme Court of India took a new interpretation of Article 25 as well as Article 19. Before we understand what did the Supreme Court say, let's look into Article 25 of the Indian Constitution. What does Article 25 of the Indian Constitution say? It speaks about freedom of conscience, free profession, practice and propagation of religion. What is the freedom of conscience? Freedom of conscience is that particular principle which basically goes on to say that I can think the way I want to. Let's say for example, I feel that God is in the form of an idol. So I can think internally the way I want to. If I believe that there is a Ganesha Murti, that there is Lord Shiva Linga, I can believe it in my thought process. So my thought process is the freedom of conscience. So I can treat God as an Akara, I can treat God as a Nirakara. So I can treat God as having a form, I can treat God as having no form at all. So what I think internally is none of the business of any section of the people, because it's my internal thought process. So freedom of conscience basically goes on to say that I can think God the way I want to. I can treat it as an idol, I can treat it as formless, I can treat it as any which ways that I want, because it's my internal thought process. So freedom of conscience per se is an absolute fundamental right. Remember, Article 25 is not absolute, it is qualified, which we will discuss eventually. But freedom of conscience is absolute in nature. The state cannot interfere, another individual cannot interfere, the society cannot interfere, because freedom of conscience happens to be an absolute right. Remember, Article 25 is not absolute, Article 25 happens to be a qualified right, but only freedom of conscience is absolute because I can think the way I want to internally in my thought process. So basically, What is freedom of conscience? Freedom of conscience is that particular thought process where you go on to believe that God has a specific form, it does not have a specific form. That is absolutely left to you. So Article 25 is qualified, but freedom of conscience is absolute because that is related to your thought process. Then we have profess. What is profess? Let's say for example, I am a Hindu. I say that I am a proud Hindu. That is profession. Or let's say for example, there is a Muslim. He says that he is a practitioner of Islam. So he happens to be a Muslim, he is professing it. Or let's say there is another person who is a Christian. So he says he is a Christian and that person is professing it. So what is profess here? Profess basically says that I am a Hindu, I have so and so name, that I proudly declare that I am a Hindu. I wear it on my sleeves. That is what is called as profess. So when you say profess, a person is saying that he is a practitioner of a particular religion and that is free profess. So I am declaring my religious affirmity to one of the religions. That is profess. Then what we have is practice. What is practice? Let's say for example, I am a Hindu. I want to conduct homa at my home. I want to conduct rituals at my place. So I conduct these homas and havanas at my place. That is practice. Let's say for example, a person from a practitioner of Islam, he goes to a mosque or he goes to a dargah or he practices his own religion. He has certain principles. He has his own rituals. That is what is practice. Or a person who is from a Christian religion, practitioners of Christianity, they go to Sunday masses, they go to the church. So they have a fundamental principle, they have certain rituals and practices which they do, and that is what is practice. What is propagation of religion? I as an Hindu, I would be able to bring large number of people to a particular platform. We discuss about religion, we discuss about the practices, we discuss about the Vedas as well, and we have couple of views and interpretations of the same Veda. The same Veda can be called as what is called as Advaita, which was propagated by Shankaracharya. Then the same Vedas can be interpreted as Dvaita, and the same can also be interpreted as Vishishtadvaita. So I bring people together, I propagate my thoughts. I say this is what is the interpretation of Vedas. So I am a practitioner Hindu. So I bring people together and we discuss about our own religion. So I'm propagating my religion. Or if I'm singing in the, let's say I take the permission from the law and order enforcement agencies, the police officers, I sing as well. I also conduct certain conferences as well. That is the propagation. Propagation is where I'm disseminating the information from me to other sections of the people, and that happens to be the propagation. Similarly, there are all religions who would also be able to propagate their religion. They would be able to have conferences after conferences and ultimately make sure that they're disseminating the values, the principles, the ethos of that particular religion. So when we speak about freedom of conscience and free profession, practice and propagation, this happens to be one of the fundamental right recognized under Article 25 of the Indian Constitution. And do note, when we speak about propagation, propagation does not mean the right to convert. You can propagate, you can say that this is your idea of the religion, that you belong to so and so religion, that you declare and say that this is the principle that I am espousing. But that does not mean that you declare and convert an individual from one religion to another. That is also barred by the Supreme Court of India, where the Supreme Court has already declared a number of landmark judgments that the right to propagate is not the right to convert. That is what is Article 25. Now this Article 25 is also qualified in nature. What is qualified in nature? That there are reasonable restrictions. When I say absolute in nature, that there are, when I say that fundamental right is absolute, which means there are no exemptions. In India, in fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution, we have only one fundamental right which is absolute in nature, and that happens to be Article 17 of the Indian Constitution, which speaks about untouchability. Untouchability in no forms can be practiced, which basically means this is the only absolute fundamental right without any restrictions that are present in the Indian Constitution. Rest of the fundamental rights that we have in the Indian Constitution are all qualified in nature. None of them are fundamental. That is, none of them are absolutely fundamental. All have reasonable restrictions and are qualified. Similarly, Article 25 of the Indian Constitution is also qualified in nature, which means to say that there are some reasonable restrictions. What are these reasonable restrictions? Subject to public order, morality and health, to other provisions of this part. What is this part? That is part 3 of the Indian Constitution, which is the fundamental rights. All persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and to right to freely profess, practice and propagate their religion. So there are qualified rights and there are reasonable restrictions, and those reasonable restrictions is with respect to the public order, morality and health. So the state can interfere, which means to say that the government, the state and the judiciary can interfere in the secular aspects. It will not interfere with the religious aspects, but it can interfere with the secular aspects. When I say secular aspects, we also have what is called as the practices which have been followed by a particular religion for a very long period of time. Let's say, for example, can the Supreme Court interpret and say that practicing of namaz 5 times a day is wrong? No. Why? Because that happens to be the religious aspect of Islam. So there are some essential practices which cannot be declared as unconstitutional, or the state or the judiciary cannot interfere in those areas. This is what is called as essential principle doctrine. So what is this essential principle doctrine? In those areas where the state can interfere, where the judiciary can interfere, are called as the religious aspects. They are called as the secular aspects. In these areas the state can interfere, the judiciary can interfere, but in the religious aspects the state cannot interfere. So subject to public order, morality and health, other areas where they can practice, they can go ahead and practice, but if there is a violation of public order, morality and health, the state can interfere, the judiciary can interfere. Nothing in this article shall affect the operation of any existing law or prevent the state from making any law regulating or restricting any economic, financial, political or other secular activity which may be associated with the religious practices. So in case there is a violation of certain rights, let's say for example a woman is not allowed to enter into a temple, or there are a certain section of the people within a community who are not allowed to enter a temple, in that particular case the state can come up and also make laws so that all sections of the people are equally represented and at the same time their article 25 is not getting violated. And do note, when we say Hindu, this also includes the Sikh community, the Jaina and the Buddhist religious community. So this is what is article 25. Why did we discuss about it? That is because when we go back to the national anthem case, what exactly happened? We have these Jehovah Witnesses. They basically go on to say that they would not want to sing the national anthem primarily because they would have utmost respect to their own God and they would sing praises and sing psalms only in the name of this God. That is what their interpretation is. What did the Supreme Court say? So the Supreme Court said that there is a circular. This circular is given by the state government. The state government has passed a circular where it said that all students will have to sing national anthem. But then the Supreme Court said that we have one of the major laws in the country which is fundamental right, and we also have fundamental duties as well. We also have to respect the national anthem as well. But did they disrespect the national anthem? No, they were standing for the national anthem, just that they didn't sing, which ultimately means that there is no fundamental duty or nothing in the law says that they have to compulsorily sing. They are respecting the national anthem, and as a result they went on to say that since article 25 of the Indian Constitution guarantees rights of the religion, they have certain fundamental rights, and if you are not allowing these individuals to go to the school and they are not allowed to participate in the school, this ultimately is taking away their right to education. First point. Second point is article 19. In article 19 there are some reasonable restrictions. Let's say for example sovereignty or public order. Is there anything to do with the national anthem? No. Is there anything to do with the national anthem which is also explicitly mentioned in any of the other laws? No. Since they are standing, they are respecting the national anthem, they need not sing because that is guaranteed under article 25, because article 25 says that they have a certain conscience and that conscience will not allow them to sing the national anthem, but they are respecting by standing for the national anthem. So it is not violating article 25, and at the same time article 19 also has right to silence as well. This right to silence is also part of the freedom of speech and expression. While they can remain silent, they are allowed to remain silent under article 19. This is not violating any of the constitutional principles. And added to it, even if it is a circular does not have any of these validations. It is only the parliamentary law which can come up and ultimately restrict such operations. A circular cannot do so, says the Supreme Court of India. So in Bijoy, Emmanuel and others was a state of Kerala and others, which is to do with these Jehovah Witnesses. We have the Supreme Court of India in this landmark judgment which said that yes, national anthem will have to be respected. They have to stand for the national anthem. However, they can remain silent because that is an aspect of Article 19. Article 19 goes on to say that as much as you have freedom of speech and expression, where I can speak with respect to reasonable restrictions, but then I also have the right to silence. So these people can remain silent, said the Supreme Court of India. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, give us impropriety, demonstrate impartiality. What is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about the powers of the speaker. We have the speaker and the deputy speaker. The speaker happens to be the person who will take up what are the proceedings that happen in the parliament in the Lok Sabha, and similarly if the speaker is not present, what we will have is the deputy speaker who will become the presiding officer. All the proceedings of the parliament will be undertaken and the decorum of the house will be maintained by the speaker of the house. Similarly, if the speaker is not present, he will also make sure that it is the deputy speaker who will take and preside the house as well. They have two major objectives when it comes to the constitution. One is they, apart from taking care of the proceedings and apart from making sure that you have people who maintain the discipline and the privileges in the parliament as well as in the state assembly, they have two major powers. One, who will declare whether a bill is a money bill or not? It happens to be the speaker. Apart from that, what we have is the 10th schedule. The 10th schedule basically speaks about the anti-defection law. Under the anti-defection law, whether a person should be disqualified or not will be decided by the speaker. So what is this anti-defection law? Let's say for example, I as a person, let's say I am contesting from Bangalore. No, I am not. I am just giving you an example. Let's say I have taken the ticket from BJP. Example, I have taken the ticket from BJP. I have contested on the BJP's ticket and I go on to win the elections as a BJP candidate. Now I have been elected as a BJP candidate. After I become part of BJP, because BJP has given me the ticket, I go on to contest the elections and ultimately I win the elections as well. What if after winning the elections, I as a person do not support the policies of BJP, but then I start supporting the policies of Congress, or I also become the part of the cabinet of Congress. Let's say for example, BJP is not able to form the government in the state of Karnataka. So what do? I become part of the Congress. Despite me winning the elections from BJP, if I go on to become part of Congress, that will lead to anti-defection law coming into existence. So if I win on the BJP elections, I should be with the BJP, follow the principles of the BJP. Whatever the party whip says, I have to listen to the party whip. But in case my actions are such that it is prompting towards Congress, I am acting in favor towards the Congress, or I go on to become the cabinet minister of Congress despite winning from BJP, that is when the anti-defection law will come into picture. In that particular premise, immediately I may be disqualified. So who will be deciding whether I should be disqualified or not? It is the speaker. So it is the speaker who will decide whether I should be disqualified under the anti-defection law. So any member would be able to make a proposal to the speaker. The speaker will look into this particular case and ultimately I can be disqualified by the speaker with respect to the anti-defection law. But what happens in the anti-defection law? The anti-defection law says that under the 10th schedule, it is the speaker who has to decide whether that person will have to be disqualified or not. But the problem with this anti-defection law is there is no timeline that is prescribed, and when a person is elected, he is elected to the Lok Sabha or to the Legislative Assembly. So if I am elected to the Lok Sabha, I am elected as a member of the parliament. So from these members, from the ruling party, a person will go on to become the speaker. So if a person is elected from a political party, if he goes on to become the speaker, will he be absolutely neutral? No. Why? Because he is elected from a political party, and that political party is currently in the government. It is that political party's person who goes on to become the speaker. So most of the times he may be able to act in an impartial way, but then he also is a person attached to the political party, so at times he can also be partisan as well. He may also not bring in the parity as well at that particular moment, despite he given the power that he has the power to disqualify a certain individual. He will not disqualify an individual primarily because he happens to be from the political party from which he has contested, and added to it, this person will not suspend another individual despite the proposal being given by the house, primarily because there is no fixed timeline that is given. That is, he has to dismiss this person within 1 month, within 6 weeks, within 6 months. None of it is given, and as a result, the author in this particular case says that because he is not able to remain impartial, this system has to change. In fact, we have the Supreme Court in Keshav Megachandra Singh versus the Honorable Speaker Manipur recommended that the Parliament amend the Constitution to vest these powers in an independent tribunal to be headed by the judges. Since these speakers in the past have been partial towards a particular group or an organization or a political party and few individuals, they are not able to remain impartial. Why not replace the speaker with the tribunal? The tribunal, when I say, it will include the judges, it will also include other section of the people as well, that is from the opposition political party, and then you bring up a group of people and ultimately they decide whether this person has to be disqualified or not. This was the recommendation given by the Supreme Court of India, but yet we do not have anything that has turned into law, and as a result, the discretionary power that is being given to the speaker, he continues to exercise this discretionary power and is yet not making sure that a person is disqualified despite n number of requests that is made by the house. So this has to change, says the author. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says government preparing to release Vision India 2047 document. What is this document all about? The government, in the midst of finalizing a national plan, plans to make India a developed nation by the year 2047, ensure that the country does not slip into a middle income trap that several countries have fallen into with similar stages of development. So the first important point is that we have the government of India which is planning to come up with a document. This document is yet not finalized, but they'll be coming up with a document called as Vision India 2047. So basically this will be a document which will give us certain practices, structured reforms that have to be taken up to make sure that India goes on to become a developed country on the economic terms. Like right now we have India which is being given the tag as a developing country, and it is this particular tag which continues to be present for India for a very long period of time. Now the government of India feels that this developing tag will have to be removed and we have to become developed. For us to become developed, what are the economic policy structural changes that has to be introduced will be part of this Vision India 2047. However, it is yet not finalized. Once it becomes finalized, we will take it up in an elaborate way. However, what you have to understand in the present situation is with respect to what is called as the middle income trap. What is this middle income trap that this article speaks about? Let's say, for example, we have one of the country which is not a developing country, which is a poor country, which has very low understanding of the economics, and they are not doing good. And as a result, what will this country do? This country is not able to keep up to its tempo. It does not have very good economy, and it happens to be a low income country. That is, this country does not have much of the fundamentals which are covered on the structural basis of the economy. Their income is comparatively low. So this happens to be a low income country. So if this happens to be a low income country, what would happen? All their economic resources are not good. They do not have their fundamentals soundly covered. But then they have an advantage. The advantage is in terms of their people. When it comes to their people, they would be able to afford labor forces, or they would be able to afford all these exercises of the services at a very affordable price. So they will give cheap labor as well. So because they have cheap labor, because they have maximum number of people who are ready to work for less quantity or less payment, in that particular case, the low income countries, since they have some disadvantages, they are ready to use their labor force at a very cheap labor, and over a period of time this country enters into a middle income. So they have agriculture, so that happens to be the primary sector. Then they also have manufacturing as well. Manufacturing happens to be the second sector. So they have moved from agriculture towards the manufacturing sector. They have cheap labor as well. For example, we have it in China, where they are able to provide cheap labor. When you consider a particular product, if a particular product has to be designed in United States of America, what you have is certain labor laws. These labor laws have to be upkept. They have to be paid a certain amount of money for so many hours. But that is not the same when it comes to China, or when it comes to Bangladesh, or when it comes to any of the East Asian countries. What they provide is cheap labor. So because they were able to provide cheap labor, they will be able to move from low income country to the middle income country. And once they hit the middle income country, the aspiration is that they go on to become a developed country. But now they will not become the developed country, but then they are stuck in the middle income country. Why? That is because whenever you speak about the source of income, what you would expect is a continuous trajectory. So continuous increase over a period of time, that is from the low they go on to become the middle income country. From the middle income country they go on to become a developed country. That is the trajectory. But then what happens? They will start remaining in this middle income country for a very long period of time, and that is what is called as the middle income trap. So a country which moves from low income to the middle income countries but continues to languish in the middle income country and not move to the developed income country, that is what is called as middle income trap. So they want to move and become a developed country, but they cannot become a developed country because there are many impediments that they face. And as a result, what this article says is that we have been a developing country for a very long period of time. We have been stuck in this middle income trap. So for us to move to the developed country, we have to bring few changes, and that changes will be introduced in the Vision India 2047 document, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says penny drop verification. This article is important from your GS paper 3 economy. What is this article saying? That the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority has made penny drop verification mandatory for the withdrawal of funds of the subscribers of the National Pension Scheme. So in case a person is withdrawing his money from the National Pension Scheme, in that case penny drop verification is very important. So what is this penny drop verification? Let's say for example, you have a cash of about 10,000 rupees. So what do? You say that you would want to send money from one place to another, but you do not have it in your phone pay, or you do not have it in your Google Pay. So what do? You request your friend, you ask your friend, dear friend, please send 10,000 rupees to my friend who is in Delhi. So this person says, okay, I am ready to send the money, but let's first ensure and verify and authenticate if this person happens to be the person you're wanting to send the money. So what do? You immediately open your phone pay or your Google Pay and you immediately drop a message saying hi, or if that is not okay, after confirmation you would also send 1 rupee, or you would also send 2 rupees to that person who is in Delhi. So you would just send 1 rupee or 2 rupee to that person who is in Delhi or to any other person. So sending of 1 rupee or 2 rupee is what is called as penny drop verification. So that person who is in Delhi will check his history, he'll check his account details, and he will confirm yes, he has received 1 rupee or 2 rupee. That is what is called as penny drop verification. In this particular case, you send 1 rupee or 2 rupee. It is not 10,000 or 1 lakh, but then just 1 rupee or 2 rupee. That person confirms that he has received 1 or 2 rupee. Only after that, you send 10,000 rupees or 1 lakh or whatsoever, which is called as penny drop verification. Similarly, what happens in the banking channels? The banking channel will first send about 1 rupee or 2 rupee to your account. You verify and You verify and you accept that 1 rupee or 2 rupee has been received by you. Only after that the bank will send the rest of the money. So we have what is called as the national pension system or the national pension scheme. Under the national pension scheme, you would have contributed to the national pension scheme from your salary while you are working. So at the end of 60 years, what you require is a pension that comes your way. So whenever you're withdrawing from the national pension scheme, what this article says is that the bank has to first verify, that is, if you're pulling off to that particular bank where you want to receive it, first ensure that there is penny verification. Take 1 rupee, 2 rupee from that particular system, introduce into your banking channel. Only after you give the confirmation that you have received 1 or 2 rupee, that is when the entire money will fall into your account. So through the process of Central Record Keeping Agency, they check the active status of the savings bank account, match the name in the bank account number with the name in the permanent retirement account number, and this will be used as a confirmation. So what are the advantages of the penny drop verification? One, it is giving also the second round of security, and it will also prevent frauds as well. Let's say for example, you happen to send money and that person says no, he has not received the money. You will be the person who will be suffering because you've already made the payment. This will also be the second round of security as well. Only after that person has verified and has accepted and then acknowledges the fact that he has received the money, that is when you send the money. So there is two-way security and prevention of the fraud. So as a result, if this is enabled, what we will have is no fraud taking place and the security will be enhanced, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says developed countries to overshoot carbon emissions goals, says the study. So there was a study that was conducted by a think tank called as the Council for Energy, Environment and Water. So the Council for Energy, Environment and Water happens to be a not-for-profit think tank and policy institution. Where is it based? It is based in New Delhi. It was formed to provide independent research-based insights to policymakers for building a sustainable India. Its areas of practice include energy and resource efficiency and security, power sector reforms, industrial decarbonization, sustainable mobility and cooling, sustainable food systems, climate risks and adaptation, air quality, water resource management, sustainability finance, energy trade, climate linkages, climate geoengineering, governance. These are the areas on which we have the Council for Energy, Environment and Water, which works on it. Now they have come up with a report, and according to this report they go on to say that the developed countries are supposed to maintain and sustain a certain level of emissions. So what we have is the nationally determined contribution. So I decide how much of emissions I am making as per the Paris Agreement. Now what if there is a country which has accepted that the emissions for that year and before a particular timeline for the year 2030 will not be beyond a particular emission? For example, they will say that they will be only emitting 10,000 tons of carbon, but then by the year 2030 it will be about 15,000 tons of carbon. So they are violating their own nationally determined contributions. So this is what the author says, that most of the developed countries except for Belarus and Norway, rest of the other countries are not keeping up with the nationally determined contributions, and as a result what we will have is more emissions, and then climate change crisis will continue to haunt us, says this group. This group, that is the Council for Energy, Environment and Water, looks into low carbon economy, energy transitions, power markets, industrial sustainability, sustainable livelihoods, clean air, sustainable water, sustainable food systems, sustainable cooling, sustainable mobility. And they now, having looked into this entire issue, they now say that it is the world which is going to suffer because of the procrastination of these developed countries. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is important from your GS paper 3 and your GS paper 1 geography perspective, from the environment and ecology as well as geography. It makes a reference to Negro River. Where is this Negro River? This happens to be a left bank tributary of Amazon. So in case they ask you which is the tributary of Amazon, or Negro River is a tributary of which river, it happens to be of the Amazon River. So remember, we have the left bank tributary of Amazon River which happens to be Negro, and recently what has happened, the water in this particular Negro river has depreciated. It has come down, it has dropped over a period of time. Since it has dropped, people are now able to see rock paintings on these rocks. Before this, there was a lot of water, they were not able to see any of these paintings, and now because the water has dropped, there is deficient water, the drop quality has dropped. Archaeologists and residents have said that there are paintings on the Ponta das Lajes archaeological site. So Ponta das Lajes archaeological site is present in Monas, where in the country of Brazil. This happens to be another important factor for the preliminary examination point of view. Now, since the water has depreciated in this particular area, the livelihood has been hit. Why? Because there were a number of people who were making their livelihood from the fishing activity. The fishing activity has suffered, and added to it, there were people who are making use of the water for irrigation purposes. That is currently not happening because the water has dropped, and added to it, this was also used for the agricultural purposes. That is also dropped in the present situation. So because the water level has dropped, the livelihood of fishers, irrigation and agricultural facilities have dropped, and as a result, climate change crisis has manifested, has increased, is what is this article all about. So from the preliminary examination, Negro River happens to be the left bank tributary of Amazon, first point, and second, what we have is Ponta das Lajes archaeological site. Where is it? It is in Brazil. That's the second point. And third is from the mains, because there is crunch of water, the quality of the water and quantity of water has reduced. This has impacted the fishing community, irrigation and agriculture, is what is this article all about. It is this that you have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.